I'm Draven. I typically make high gain amp demos here on YouTube, and as you might be able to tell, today's video is going to be quite a bit different. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Seymour Duncan Powerstage 700, and we'll be talking a bit about different ways to use it, and just kind of why I think most guitarists should have something like this. Which, with that being said, today's video is kind of sponsored by Seymour Duncan, as they did hook me up with the Powerstage 700. And while, as far as I know, the Powerstage stuff is kind of the best you can get in terms of a clean power amp, all the stuff that we're going to go through today kind of applies to pretty much any power amp, but all the different formats that the Powerstage come in is kind of unbeatable. So today we're going to be checking out what is kind of turning into like one of my favorite little setups, which is just a relatively old MacBook running Reaper, and I have a couple of amp sims with their cab sims turned off, and with that I'm running a UAD Volt interface, and so I have my guitar just going straight into that, and then the output of that is going into the Powerstage 700 into my Mesa 412 with V30s, and I have that mic'd up with a SM57 and a ST Electronics VR1. And what's really cool about this type of rig is your options are pretty much endless in terms of your overall volume. With the 700, it gets extremely loud. As you'd imagine, you can use any amp sim that you'd like. And with those amp sims, with the UAD Volt, it has MIDI in and out. So you can run a MIDI pedal board if you wanted and control all of your settings in the plugin. Or if you're playing along with backtracks or anything like that, you can automate all of your settings, as well as you can add any post effects you wouldn't typically be able to find in something like a Quad Cortex or like Helix or something like that. As well as a huge note with a rig like this, with kind of the increase in popularity of just using like modelers and stuff live, you do get the same benefits when using just like a laptop and an interface. But a big reason that I wanted to make this video as well is with more and more people switching over to Quad Cortexes and stuff like that, a lot of people are just going direct into PA systems, which is obviously extremely easy. But after seeing a few bands that do that live, I definitely think that going just direct is a pretty bad idea. If you've seen some bands that do just direct live and aren't playing at like a huge venue, you might know what I'm talking about. But when you're standing up near the stage and they don't have any cabs or anything like that, all you hear is drums. No guitars, no bass or anything like that, which is exactly where the Powerstage comes in. Running IRs into the PA system at a live show is definitely a super easy way to get the exact sound that you want through the PA. But like I said, it does leave a super empty sound near the stage. So implementing a Powerstage and a real cab will definitely fill in the sound near the stage. And I don't think that's something that a lot of bands are thinking about when setting up their rigs. And I just think it's something that more people should be paying attention to. And lastly, before I show you how I set up the Powerstage, I just wanted to share some technical information about it with you, which is just that with the Powerstage 700 specifically, it is 700 watts per side when using a 4 ohm cab. And then if you're using an 8 ohm cab, it's 350 watts. And with the EQ knobs in the center, be a flat response, and you can push them up or down 13 decibels. The bass knob is at 87 hertz. The mid knob is at 712 hertz. And the treble knob is at 6.6 kilohertz. And in case you're curious about the weight at all, it is 6.3 pounds. Yep. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and check out how to set it up and then see how it sounds. All right, so the setup for this is super simple. The four main components that we need for it are the laptop, or you could even use your desktop, a interface, the Powerstage, and a cab, as well as we're going to need a USB cable to connect the computer to the interface, a patch cable or instrument cable to go from the interface to the Powerstage, a guitar cable to go from your guitar to the interface, a power cable for the Powerstage, and a speaker cable to go from the Powerstage to the cab, or you can use a speak-on to 1/4 inch speaker cable. And on the laptop, I'm running all of the plugins through Reaper. I find that running standalone guitar plugins have a little more latency, but if you run them through Reaper, they tend to be a little faster. And so we're just going to go ahead and plug the USB into the laptop and the other side of the USB-C into the USB port on the interface. And then we'll be running one of the outputs I'm just going to use the left output, and we're going to plug that into the left input on the power stage. And then we're going to need to power the power stage. So I just have the cable that comes with it that will plug into here. And then we want to take a speaker cable, not an instrument cable. And then we'll be plugging this into the left output of the power stage. And then we'll be putting the other end into the 8 ohm mono input on the cab. And then your guitar cable just goes into, and then with this interface specifically, you want to make sure that you have it set to instrument and make sure that your guitar isn't clipping the input. And lastly, you want to make sure that Reaper is recognizing your interface. So you want to make sure that that's set up, and then you want to arm your track, pull up your plugin, and make sure you don't have any IRs or cab sims selected. And then you just want to make sure that your output volume is as loud as possible without continuously clipping the input of the power stage. And that's it. You're ready to play. All right, so now that we got it all set up, we'll go ahead and check out some sounds that we can get out of it. Like I said, I have 3 different plugins that we're going to run through. The first one is the Atlas DSP Atlas amp, which came out recently. Has a whole bunch of like cool pedals and stuff built in. And like I said, I turned off the cab simulation since we have it running through the power stage into the Mesa cab with the 57 and VR1. And currently I have the EQ settings on the power stage just at noon, and we'll kind of like tweak them as it needs. Also, as you can see here, I have the volume set super low, which is already pretty loud. So if you don't need insane amounts of volume to fill like large rooms and big outdoor stages and stuff, I'd definitely look into the Powerstage 200, 170, or 100, which, considering how low I have this set, I would imagine that any of those would have more than enough volume to keep up with a full band playing shows and stuff. Yeah, it sounds like this. And I'll go ahead and mess with the EQ on the power stage a little bit and see what that does. An important note that I mentioned in the unboxing video I did of this, the EQ is put before the clipping, so it's something you have to be mindful of. But if the red light is only coming on here and there, it's not anything to really worry about. You just want to make sure that it's not staying red. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, there's tons of stuff that you can do with plugins that make this type of setup like super versatile, such as a lot of modern plugins have pitch shifters built in, so you can do super extreme stuff like pitching your guitar down an octave. Or even if you just need to change your tuning 1 or 2 semitones between songs. My guitar is currently set up in drop G, but say we needed to be in drop A. As easy as just raising the pitch 2 semitones. Or if we needed to go down to drop F, we could lower it 2 semitones. As well as using plugins, a lot of the time they have multiple pedals and all that kind of stuff built in, and so you can turn on and off plugins as you need them. So say we needed a fuzz added into our signal chain to make it just super gross sounding, we could do that. And like I mentioned, you could run a MIDI pedal with this or automate all of the patch changes and stuff like that if you're running some sort of backtrack rig or anything like that. And outside of that, just the kind of versatility that you get with this is pretty much endless. We'll go ahead and check out the next amp sim that I have pulled up, which is the ML SoundLab Amped Roots plugin, which is a free plugin based on the EVH 5153 EL34, and that sounds like this. And not only can you just add like boost pedals and stuff like that, you can add chorus and delay and all that. And lastly, a really cool thing you can do with a laptop rig like this is use Neural Amp Modeler, which is a kind of computer's version of like a Kemper or Quad Cortex capture kind of thing, which is a super handy thing to have since maybe you have a really expensive rig or something that you don't want to bring out to shows, but you want that sound. You can capture it using Neural App Modeler and then have it set up like this and run it through your cab. And for instance, this is a capture of my Mesa 90s rectifier, boosted with a Spooky Vibes Night Terror that I captured a while back. And yeah, it's just a super handy setup that I feel most people already have half of this stuff. So adding in the power amp just gives you a ton of versatility in what you can do with your setup, as well as typically if I'm using like a plugin, usually I'll try and run the plugin through an actual cab, since using just a plugin in IR sometimes can be very like stiff and sterile sounding. So using this in a real cab definitely helps give plugins some extra life and movement. But with that being said, let's also check out the cab sim that is built into the Powerstage. And other than that, I think that's about it. If you ended up enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, I have some affiliate links down in the description, or if you want to pick something up, it helps me out a ton. And yeah, let's check out the cab sim.